Okay, I think we're live now. I would like to welcome you all to our webinar series, which we have started. So this is an initiative of Hisar Foundation in collaboration with the NDCC, the National Dialogue on Climate Change, which is a youth-led initiative based out of the students from NED. And Hisar Foundation has been working in the water sector for the last 17 years. We have projects on ground. We have a think tank on water, on rational use of water, and we have our biannual conferences, Karachi International Water Conference, and we are going to be setting up a Panjwani Hisar Water Institute, which is going to be housed at NED. So today we have worked with the NDCC, and we are going to be going live every for the next 4 days for our webinar series, which is arranged to inform our youth about climate change and the green goal and what it means for Pakistan. So Pakistan is ranked among the top 10 countries that are affected by climate change. And if we look at the economic losses as a result of the climate change disasters, we are ranked number 3 because of the damages, the economic damages to our economy. So today, to discuss climate change and Pakistan recently achieving its goal SDG 13 of climate action, which talks about action to combat climate change and its impact, we have our esteemed guest, Mr. Hammad Naqi. I'm going to introduce Hammad Naqi. So Hammad is the CEO of WWF Pakistan, and he possesses more than 30 years of professional experience in climate change adaptation, sustainable agriculture with focus on improving farmers' livelihood, market transformation, and greening supply chain, food security, water management, resource mobilization, and partnership building. As global cotton leader under WWF International Market Transformation Initiative, Hammad has led advocacy approaches representing WWF in multilateral fora and other policy dialogues. Hammad is also a non-official member of Pakistan Climate Change Committee chaired by Prime Minister and a fellow of Leadership for Environment and Development Program. We are honored to have you join us, Hammad.
Thank you, Daniya. Thank you for the kind introduction. I feel humbled and honored to be, present in this session. Thank you, Hisar Foundation and National Dialogue on Climate Change, to giving me and WWF Pakistan an opportunity to share some of our thoughts. Quickly, WWF, we are part of the international network. We are the largest environmental organization globally and also in Pakistan. So let me come straight to the topic. Just a little bit of context. I hope kindly I request the organizers to please share my screen. So if just looking at some of the background, this process of sustainable development goals, it started in 2015. I mean, obviously, all the goals are important. I think, as Daniya mentioned, SDG 13 talks about, it covers the climate action. But for a country like Pakistan, SDG 6, which is about clean water and sanitation, SDG 7, which is about affordable and clean energy, SDG 12, which is about responsible consumption and production. So, I mean, all these goals are, for environmental sustainability and biodiversity, and important for a country like Pakistan. Now, recently there was a lot of celebration within the government circles and also in the media that Pakistan has achieved SDG 13, which is about climate action, 10 years, almost a decade earlier than the deadline, which was 2030. So I think it's important to understand that what kind of actions were required to achieve this, and also like are we there, or is it just few things which have been notified, and which results in a country like Pakistan achieving that. Do you want me to control the slides, or can you do it, or do you want me to do it? Okay, can you see my slide number 2, which is the title is, what is SDG 13? Is
Yes,
this
it's
okay?
visible.
Good.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, good, good. So, but let me also say at the onset, as I think Dani also mentioned, as a country, we are one of the most vulnerable country, one of the
Yeah.
top 5 most vulnerable country, if you look at the impacts of climate change. And for us, climate change is water change. So I'll tell you that why is it important for us, not to celebrate, but take more actions just to ensure that the challenges related to water, we are in a position to meet them. Uh, okay, if I go to the next slide, I think I've already slightly covered that. Now, there are also some good policy and regulatory framework which was notified, which was agreed upon in the recent past. And obviously, the present government is a kind of a green party government. The prime minister loves outdoor, loves nature. And if you look at the manifesto of the ruling party, and you compare that with other ruling parties, there was a lot of emphasis on nature conservation, on promoting actions which reduce pollution, a lot of commitment towards sustainable development. So that was the good part. And we can also see that in some aspects, those commitments, those plans were translated into actions. और वो अब हम देखते हैं कि वो कौन से थे कि जो प्रेजेंट गवर्नमेंट ने किए, और ऑब्वियसली उनमें से कुछ थे कि जब वो प्रोविंशियल गवर्नमेंट में थे, दे वर रूलिंग द केपी प्रोविंस, खैबर पख्तूनख्वा, एंड दे स्टार्टेड the plantation, the billion tree tsunami,
The billion person.
and sorry, and they wanted to kind of expand that initiative, and they wanted to go for 10 billion tsunami and across the country. The Climate Change Act was notified in 2017, and as part of that act, there were a framework for action. Recently, there was a writ petition in the Lahore High Court that the government is not taking any action, and the commission was constituted. I was a member of that commission. The commission was assigned the task to look at the implementation status of that framework, जो climate change से related था, जो government ने commit किया था कि provincial government, forest में, wildlife में, water resource management में, and so on and so forth, that these are the actions, these are the short term, these are the mid term, and maybe these are the long term actions which we will take. Obviously, there are also a lot of policies and rules and regulations which have been formed recently. As a country, we are very good in attending these global conventions. We really feel proud to sign and ratify those conventions, but we are not very good when we have to implement those legally binding international standards. बेशक वो कन्वेंशन ऑन बायोलॉजिकल डाइवर्सिटी है, जहाँ प्रोटेक्टेड एरियाज की बात होती है, क्लाइमेट क्योटो प्रोटोकॉल है, बेसल कन्वेंशन हैजर्डस वेस्ट के. So you'll see that there are so many conventions, legally binding international agreements which the government has signed. And in most areas, we have notified the supportive policy and rules and regulations. So where is the problem? But before I come to the problem, let me quickly share some of the good things. And I would say If you look at the compliance of SDG 13, वो देखना चाहते थे कि गवर्नमेंट्स कितने एक्शंस ले रही हैं. And now if you look at the indicators, I mean, if there are, I don't know, I think there are 7 indicators. 6 are global in nature. आप लोगों ने डिजास्टर रिस्क जो मेजर्स हैं वो लिए हैं कि नहीं लिए. आप लोगों की जो इंटीग्रेटेड पॉलिसीज आप लोगों ने एज अ कंट्री, हैव यू नोटिफाइड दोज पॉलिसीज. कितनी कंट्रीज हैं जिन्होंने अपनी इंस्टीट्यूट्स को, अपने डिपार्टमेंट्स को स्ट्रेंथन किया है सो दैट टू एड्रेस दैट चैलेंज. द कंट्रीज आर दे गेटिंग गुड सपोर्ट from the available financial frameworks. Like in this case, the Green Climate Fund is a huge fund to support the countries which are more vulnerable towards the climate change. So if you look at these indicators, the policies, we have national disaster management authorities, we have disaster risk strategies, we have climate policy, we have a framework action, we are getting support from a Green Climate Fund. हमारे जो at least जो जैसे glacier lake outburst flood, particularly if you go like in the northern areas, because जो मैंने पहले बात की थी कि climate change और water का क्या nexus है. A lot of water, like more than 50% of the water in our system comes from
the
snow
glaciers,
and
snow melt.
glacier melt, right? And then obviously we are children of monsoon. We get the monsoon rains, जो आजकल like monsoon season है, और खैर उसके problems भी होते हैं, but we get a lot of rain, which also recharges our groundwater, but also brings water in our reservoirs and to meet the need. So in that respect, there was a project कि जहाँ पे because of rising temperature, जो glaciers melt होते हैं और flood आता है, so there's a GLOF project which is being funded by GLOF, by GCF. But again, if you look at some of the recent initiatives, present government, as I shared about 10 billion tree tsunami, they want to bring more area under plantation. There's a protected area initiative where they want to bring more area under protection. There will be more national parks, more wildlife sanctuaries, more game reserves. Then there is a ecosystem restoration fund. This used to be the National Disaster Risk Management Fund, but a significant amount has been allocated कि यार ये जो हमारे sensitive ecosystems हैं, इनको जो threats हैं, उनको हमने किस तरह एड्रेस करना है. Other initiatives, Clean and Green Pakistan, we need to improve the wash and particularly sanitation. Cities के दरमियान में sustainability और waste management को improve करने के लिए there's a Clean Green Pakistan Index, और ताकि उनका आपस में भी competition हो and then the cities take action. Recently announced electric vehicle policy so that the vehicles are less polluting. So we can see that there is a list of initiatives which the government has at least announced. But let me also share with you, whenever we talk about any environmental problem, we say plant trees. Yes, it's very important to plant trees because as a country, the area under vegetation is very low. It's like hardly 4%.
I think it's 5%. Pakistan's forest cover is
the
around
government
5%
reports.
only.
The government reports say 5%. FAO says 2.2, and we endorse FAO. So I use the a figure which is between the government figure and some of the independent organisms. Okay, let's assume it's 5%, but still. A rule of thumb is that at least 25% of the area should be under forest. A country like Bhutan is 70%. I mean, let's go to our neighbor India. Look at the area under vegetation or under forest. So that's one point that, yes, we do need plantation, we do need more tree cover, but let's not portray, the plantation as the solution.
The
It's
only,
not
exactly.
the solution. We need to take a lot of other actions, and I'll tell
Yeah.
you why. As part of CPEC, there was a lot of emphasis focus on coal-fired power plants. Obviously, civil society raised objections that we need to, everybody is shutting down or have announced that there are no more coal-fired power plants. So why are we having? And a plant like in Sahiwal, where we use imported coal, coal comes by the sea to the port city of Karachi, then it's transported by train to a fertile agricultural land, Sahiwal, where we have put up this fancy
That's a
coal-fired
very
power plant. So
counterproductive process.
this
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make economic sense.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about environment. So the point is that yes, there were good initiatives, but we need to be careful. Uh, let's come back to the SDG 13s. I told you that if you look at some of the actions that contribute towards a stage where Pakistan is in a position to claim, and that claim is accepted, that the measures that the country has taken, or if you look at the commitments, you know, considering the plans, the initiatives the government has announced, we have taken significant good climate action to address the challenges, and that's the reason that we have achieved SDG 13.
13. Yeah.
Uh, so I think let me say and share this that okay, I think this is the. Uh, I think I've shared this that the some of the indicators which were present in the SDG 13, but some of the indicators which are also present in SDG 16. Oh, sorry, SDG 6, which is about water and sanitation. So SDG 6 is the target which provide, kind of a resilience and adaptive capacity to climate change impact. As I said earlier, for us, climate change is water change. So as if we are vulnerable, which means that the demand of water is increasing, our population is increasing, our demand of industry is increasing. Unfortunately, environment is never recognized as a water user, but our wetlands, our delta, some of the fragile ecosystems, which as per government documents, they are protected areas. They need more water. And because of this pandemic, where there's a lot of focus on personal hygiene, अपने हाथ धोएं, क्यों जरूरी है कि आपने अपने आप को इससे बचाना है. हमारी सारी population के पास इतना, do they have access to
Clean water.
some kind of
Yeah.
water, to clean water? So that's where we see, कि जो हमें problems नजर आती हैं कि किसी जगह पे कि SDG जो 13 की compliance है, उससे हम कहीं ये ना समझ बैठें कि हम लोगों ने जो हमारे environmental issues थे उनको, या जो हमारे public health से related issues हैं. Because look, take the example of this pandemic. This is a public health issue, but this is also a financial issue. This is also an economic issue. This is also a social issue. This is also an environmental issue. There are clear links between such pandemics and nature, and also कि क्यों ये जरूरी है कि हमने नेचर को बचाना है. और फिर जब हम अगेन अपने कॉन्टेक्स्ट में देखते हैं कि अगर हम देखें कि परसेंटेज ऑफ वेस्ट वाटर जो हम ट्रीट कर रहे हैं, it's negligible. Per capita water availability is decreasing. The accessibility to potable water in particular, access to improved sanitation, Obviously, the problem is that government documents may, even if they say the community has access to a dug well, the government document, would say that they have access to potable water.
I would like to just
Uh,
bring about one fact that I came across when I was looking up for this is that out of all the SDGs in the recent 2020 SDG index report, Pakistan is only on track on SDG 13. The rest of it is all in the red zone.
that's
So,
correct. That's
what
the
does it
point that I'm
actually
trying to
mean?
make.
Yeah. So, what does it
Yeah.
actually mean celebrating that we have achieved SDG 13? Whereas, wherever we look at the progress in the other areas, we are
Yeah.
lacking far behind.
That's absolutely correct. You're spot on, Dania.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
because of the fact, and I'll continue to repeat that because of the fact, and because of the fact that we are good in maybe signing, ratifying these international conventions and agreements, we are also kind of good in coming up with, good policies. We are too bad in implementing, those policies. We
Exactly.
are
Yeah.
too bad in the compliance of the supportive rules, regulations, and laws. So that's my
Yeah.
concern. And I'm saying this because for the last more than 2 decades, as an environmentalist, I've seen that, despite a lot of advocacy, despite a lot of lobbying, that we need to set our priorities right. We need to allocate resources. And we have seen this. And the unfortunate part is that even sometimes we do not learn the hard way. We saw that suppose our healthcare system was not efficient, not effective, and was not ready to face such a pandemic challenge.
Pandemic.
But
Yeah.
still, look at the budget which is allocated to healthcare. If we do not improve our environmental conditions, the clean water and clean air, there will be serious public health
We're
issues.
going to
There will
face
people.
a bigger
Exact.
disaster of
No,
climate
the
change. Yeah.
people. That's the economic cost. You also,
Yeah.
in your intro, you also
Yes.
mentioned the economic
We're the
cost.
top. Yeah.
So you ignore one sector and you increase the burden of your health sector. You lose the productivity of so many people because they get sick because of the poor environmental condition. So that's my major concern. That yes, well done. We have achieved. We have good policies. We have good rules and regulations. But for God's sake, implementation is the key. And then obviously there should be a kind of independent monitoring mechanism where it could be provided by the civil society where they assess the status of implementation of all those policies and regulatory framework. What is being done on ground? It's not just because otherwise some of the reports which are shared by the government entities uh, and the difference between those reports and the ground realities
It's so
is,
stark.
is there. You can
Yeah.
one can observe that. So I think
Yeah.
I'll thank you very much. I'll stop here,
Yeah. So,
but I would welcome
yeah.
questions and
Thank you for
feedback and
your
comment.
great insights, Hamad, into this. So, we are going to take a few questions. So, I have one question in mind, and I'm going to take others from our audience. So, given the nexus of climate action with water, with other agriculture and industry, do you think that there is an effective mechanism of coordination between our government departments, between our local provincial
Right.
governments, to actually work towards that implementability that you are mentioning again and again? So, where do you think such challenges lie, and what can we do to address them?
Okay, so I think unfortunately that coordination is still not there. When the national water policy was notified
Yeah.
after decades of struggle and hard work, and this was literally being a shuttlecock. Each department, uस department, फिर law department, फिर water ministry. But at least, so if you look at that policy document, that provides a platform, that provides a framework. उसके अंदर क्या है? There will be a national water council, there will be provincial water councils, or वो headed by the senior most people. Yeah. And then if you look at the composition of those councils, representative from civil society was there, but agriculture department, local government department, irrigation department, tourism department, because it's not that water is literally everybody's business, as an individual and as a department. So I think it's very important. लेकिन प्रॉब्लम उस वक्त होती है when agriculture department, suppose, just to give you one example, they come up, they're given a target and they come up, okay, this year, this much area will be under sugarcane, suppose. Okay, do we have enough water to have X million acres under sugarcane or under rice or under wheat or under cotton, whatever, the different climate, looking at the geographies, different crops. And then maybe tourism department, announces another project which is about lakes. The local government allows housing colonies or the development authorities which have golf courses and the lakes. Similarly, irrigation department allocates water, and the farmers at the tail end, they don't get water. So that's where there's a disconnect. That's where there is less coordination, I think, and that's where still, despite the fact that a lot of challenges have been identified, we see that the solutions are not there, unfortunately.
Yeah. So coming towards the solution, there definitely we need finance to implement our solutions and our policies and actions that we have in place. However, we see that there is this trend of always looking towards international grants and support grants. Only once we get them, then we are going to do something about it. However, what do you think Pakistan can do to come up with its own financial tools in place, such as carbon tax or polluter fees or something like that? Do you think that there is a legislative environment present for that?
More or less, yes. Okay, my response will be in two parts. I would say that there is no harm in exploring funding opportunities from external donors, because as a developing country, as a country which is vulnerable, to climate change, it was the developed world, which did not bother about their carbon emissions, and the result is in front of us. So it's like it's their legal, moral responsibility to support the developing countries, and that's the reason that Green Climate Fund was established, which is a good fund. So that respect, I think no harm. More projects should be submitted to GCF and should be funded. But that, should not stop us from exploring, our own resources and setting our priorities right. We do have, the polluter pays principle. We, as part of the Environmental Protection Act, which is now a provincial subject, there are rules and regulations where if you do not treat your wastewater, you have to pay. But we don't see enforcement. So that's where I said it's important. And then also going beyond that, also, this WWF launched a water stewardship initiative. The idea was that for big companies, they should go beyond. First, they should ensure that they reduce their water footprint within their boundaries. So they treat their wastewater, they reduce the use of water consumption. But then gradually, in a phased approach, they go beyond their fences. They look at the catchment area, they look at the basin level, they look at the watershed level, and then at least, take some measures where they collaborate with other corporate sector partners, with government entities, with local community to address challenges which are at the basin level. So voluntary चीजें भी चाहिए and regulatory framework जो हमारे by the way है, सिर्फ ये कि थोड़ा उसको enforce करने की जरूरत.
Okay, so I'm going to take a question from one of our audience. Shamsullah Durrani, he asks, how do you see the role of academia against the challenge of climate change?
Okay. Okay, good question. I think the problem with academia is because I also, as a water engineer, my first degree was from UT Lahore. I also see a disconnect between the academic research and the national priorities and the private sector priorities. So I think we need to bridge that gap. Academic research should support the national priorities. So suppose if there is we need different technologies as part of the climate change adaptation, where the farmers, instead of suppose relying on highly sophisticated, expensive drip irrigation, technologies or other water, technologies which improve water efficiency, some other. So that's where the local research, local academic research and development institutes come forward and try to bridge that gap. So you pick any area related to climate change, both mitigation and adaptation, you'll see that there are huge opportunities. Even, the data monitoring, we are so weak in getting the baseline data, and we, behind getting the solid scientific data. And if you don't have solid data, you can't plan your work. You can't plan, the next step. So I think it's also important. So maybe as a first step, just to ensure that we have good, solid scientific data and the research supports the issues being faced by both the private sector and the local community, and try to bridge that gap, because the challenges related to climate change are there. It's not that, okay, this हमारा मसला नहीं है, 20 साल बाद देखेंगे, 50 साल बाद देखेंगे. ये मसला है, शेर आया हुआ है, शेर आ नहीं रहा, शेर is there. You have to see कि वाकई शेर है कि नहीं.
Okay. So we have another question from Bari Maiman. He's saying Pakistan's ambient air quality is not far behind solid waste and water pollution. What are the crucial steps that are needed to make it more favorable?
So ambient, okay, I think good question. When this pandemic, COVID-19, the people who were vulnerable, because initially, if you look at all the symptoms, if you get serious, obviously cough. So the people who were vulnerable, वो थे जिनका upper respiratory tract कुछ infections थी, they were already suffering. And the major reason was the poor ambient air quality. What's the reason? Now, I think that let's clap that the government has, taken a step, which should have been taken decades ago, the fuel quality. We had one of the world's worst fuel quality, available in the country, जो हमारी सारी vehicles और वो use कर रही थी. अगर diesel है तो high sulfur content है, or if it's like, petrol, then you, just to ensure the wrong number, ताकि आप government की refineries additives add कर देते हैं, जिसकी वजह से और problems. So I think fuel quality, and even some of the manufacturers can't introduce, more kind of fuel efficient vehicles because the fuel quality was very poor. Burning of solid waste, I think. Then our industry, look at the cottage industry, as fuel, they burn all kinds of plastics, tires, waste. The way sometimes we manage our solid waste, we just contaminate air. So, out of sight, out of mind, कि हमने तो burn कर दिया है और वो नजर भी नहीं आ रहा, solid waste manage हो गया. No, you didn't manage it. You just, kind of just change the medium. So I think it's very important. Ambient air quality is some steps have been taken. I told you about two, Euro 5 fuel and the electric vehicles. But no more coal-fired power plants, no more waste burning, no more, this non-compliance of industry to pollute. Scrubbers nahi lagaye hue, filters nahi hai, and they are just, contaminating the air. So that's where we also need some strict.
Okay, so we have another question over here that is very specific. It asks, how does the third coal production fit into SDG 13 for Pakistan?
Sorry, say it again.
The third coal production, how does that fit
Yeah.
into SDG 13 for Pakistan?
Good question. Look, the quality of charcoal, everybody knows, again, is very poor. Uski jo calorific value hai, so you have to put a lot of investment just to ensure that you get the desired result. It's slightly better because you are relying on a local source. Obviously, it's not linked. It's not something which should be replicated. It should not be expanded. It's non-compliance because it's in conflict with some of the government commitments. जो आपने NDCs, look at the NDCs. NDCs, by the way, are the national determined contributions. Okay, this would be my national contribution towards, climate change global convention. So in that respect, obviously there's a conflict, and again, this was part of the CPAC. So.
Okay. So, given that you're saying that as you already mentioned, that we should have an independent climate monitoring group in Pakistan, who, in your opinion, could act as that? So, Simra Abbas is asking that.
It could. The thing is that we sometimes we have examples, good precedents where suppose we go for third-party monitoring. We did the government, sometimes sees the need, and sometimes there's a demand from the international community. It could be a high-level committee. It could be a subcommittee of the National Climate Change Council, which has representation from academia, from private sector, from civil society, and government. So that there should be a balanced committee. Otherwise, the private sector would say, "Oh no! This technology, this action is so expensive. We are still developing. We can't, do anything." The government would say, "We don't have the resources. We are putting." So I think it has to be a balanced group, independent group with some real authority to, engage scientific studies and then come up with solid science-based independent reports.
All right. So I think I'm going to stop the questions here because we've already exceeded our time by around 10 minutes. I think so. That was a very informative session. Thank you for all your insights.
In your opinion,
I would really.
नहीं ये वाला नहीं है. हाँ, in your opinion.
यही है ना?
हाँ, कर दिया है उन्होंने कर दिया. बस छोड़ो उन्होंने आंसर कर दिया.
All right. Okay, I was just getting disturbed. I don't know what happened. But thank you so much for joining us, Hammad. It was a pleasure having you here, and we got to learn so much from you. So this was a great and informative session. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed the session. Thank you.
Thank
Take
you.
care.